Are you a physician and you're trying to improve the doctor-patient relationship? Are you trying to take it to the next level and improve treatment adherence? Are you trying to take it to the next level and improve the health outcomes? Well, on today's podcast, we're going to touch on how to truly personalize that patient experience. I want all my friends, all my colleagues out there to take out your pens and paper and take notes. Let's go. This is a Defocus Media production. What's up, everyone? It's your favorite optometrist, Dr. Darryl Glover.
And I'm Dr. Jennifer Lyerly, resident optometry nerd.
And welcome to Defocus Media, optometry's #1 podcast, where we discuss the hottest topics, latest technology, eyewear, practice management, and more. So sit back, relax, and defocus. What's up, everyone? It's your favorite optometrist, Dr. Darryl Glover. Today, I'm super excited because we're touching on a topic that I love and that I adore. I could talk about this topic all day, all night, and I think my wife even tells me that I talk about it in my sleep. That's right, you guys. We are talking about the patient journey, how to really personalize that and take that patient care to the next level. Now, our guest today, she really blew my mind when I was hanging out with her a few weeks back. I mean, everything she was saying, I was just vibing with. This is the one time where I was kind of quiet a little bit and I just wanted to listen because everything that she was saying was so on point. It was so in detail and it was so impactful and so effective that I took some of those pearls and I went back to my clinic and I made a change. And on today's podcast, I want to welcome our colleague, the one and only Dr. Britt Gustafson. How are you doing today, my friend?
Hi, Darryl. Great to be here. I'm doing fantastic.
Well, I am super excited, and I love the doctor-patient relationship, the patient journey. I feel like as eye care professionals, as healthcare professionals, but in particular eye care professionals, this is our secret sauce to really make a change and make a wave and an impact in the entire healthcare system. Simply because as optometrists, we get a lot of face time with our patients, sometimes more than other healthcare disciplinaries. So we're really able to sit down and personalize that experience. We can really take it to the next level with that patient, but have better health outcomes. The treatment plans are more robust and more compliant with the patients. I mean, we can really just take it to the next level. Now, before we dive too deep, I always like to ask my guests to share a little bit about themselves. So if you don't mind, Britt, maybe sharing where you're from, how you got into this amazing profession known as optometry, and then we'll jump into it and discuss the top 3 ways to personalize that. You're not sharing your background, my friend.
Absolutely. So I'm Britt Gustafson. I grew up on the Oregon coast, and I happened to have a well-timed eye exam when I was a sophomore in high school. And I was a low myope. I couldn't see. At the time, it was the chalkboard in the early 90s instead of the whiteboard. So I went to the optometrist and got my first pair of glasses, which were a very stylish kind of Sally Jesse Raphael vibe, very oversized frame, the frame that goes up to your forehead and down to the cheeks and not in a good way. So that was my first frame, and that was my first interaction with the eye doctor. And it was kind of at a point in my education journey when I was starting to think about what I might want to do in life. And at that time, there was a lot of coverage on healthcare being a great opportunity for people, predicting the silver tsunami of the aging baby boomers. So I really thought, this looks like the perfect match between healthcare and caring for people and having an interesting day with different people, but without the high pressure of, working in an emergency room or being on call at 3 a.m. And so that kind of steered me into optometry. I will say, once I found out it was 8 years of school, I paused a little bit. But thankfully, I followed through. So I went to Pacific University outside of Portland, Oregon for optometry school, graduated in 2001. And strangely enough, I ended up moving to the Minneapolis area, which I never could have imagined ending up living here. And I meant to live here for about 3 years and then go back west. But I joined a Walmart practice straight out of school. I didn't foresee myself practicing in the corporate channel either. So I also thought I would do that for about 3 years. Now it's been 23 years. So I still, I still live outside of Minneapolis. I still have the same job that I had when I started practicing optometry in 2001. I now own the practice, but I've been really grateful to have relationships with my patients that I do and the flexibility in my practice mode that I do. And I just can't say enough about optometry. It's been such a great journey. I get to meet fabulous patients, fabulous colleagues, and it's so much more rewarding than I could have even expected or dreamed.
I love it. Incredible story. And you've put so much, time into this profession, and you've added so much value to this profession. And I think, a part of your knowledge, your expertise is due to your experience, right? Today, I want to really touch on, creating a personalized experience. Again, I was with you a couple weeks ago, blown away by just everything I was hearing. I fell in love. I was just like, this is my language. This is what I want to hear. This is what I want to see, right? So today I really wanted to bring you on the podcast and just really break down the top 3 ways to make that patient experience more personalized and more impactful. Because we are coming up on the holiday season, which for us as eye care professionals is go time, right? So I want my colleagues to be able to some of these best practices and implement them, not just tomorrow, but for the rest of their career. But really, I want to set them up for success as we get into this fourth quarter here. So if you don't mind, maybe just, taking it from the top, let's start with number 1 and just kind of work our way through. And just to give you a little heads up, our audience are, student optometrists, millennial optometrists, and now we're starting to get even more seasoned optometrists that are tapping in because they're seeing the value and knowledge that's created on this platform. So let's go ahead and get this party started and start with number 1, if you don't mind, my friend.
Yeah, number 1, creating that meaningful connection. And Darryl, I think you had a really good way of putting that. Was it 2 minutes of, how did you put that? Because I want to steal that.
Yeah. So that was my 2-minute drill I always share with, doctors, new graduates, mentees. When I walk into that exam room, to your point, a meaningful connection, I want to know everything about that patient. So I don't talk about anything eye care related. I just focus solely on who that person is, and I get to know them greatly. And within 2 minutes, you'll be amazed how much you know. By the end of that 2-minute drill that I call, I already know all the latest gossip in the work setting. I know who's getting married. I know about grandma, grandpa, and what they're going to eat for dinner that night, right? So you can get so much information with just that little bit of time. But let's talk a little bit more. Let's expand on this.
Yeah, I love how when you said that, I realized I do the exact same thing. I just didn't have a name for it like you did. And that 2-minute drill is perfect. It's such a foundation for getting to know that patient, what their activities are, what their priorities are, and making that connection with them. Like you were saying, we have a lot of autonomy in optometry to shape our schedules, maybe more so than other channels in healthcare. We're fortunate to have that. And so we can have that time with our patient and really shape that relationship. And I think that builds trust with patients. My mission statement in my practice is very simple, and I tell staff I want one principle to guide them. I want every patient to walk out of my office feeling better. And that can be something small. So maybe they told me about their grandkids or a trip they took, or something that's gone on in their life. I'm happy to listen to that in that 2-minute drill, but just making that connection. Sometimes it's something big that they come in with an eye care question or an eye care concern, and I can help reassure them about the health of their eyes or solve a concern that they have. So I always want somebody to walk out feeling better when they've been in my office.
I
And my
love that.
staff know. Yeah, my staff know if they're at a juncture and they don't know what to do what will make the patient feel better and walk out happy. And getting to know that patient as a person is so important. because then I can make my recommendations and personalize those. Because as they're telling me about their day and their activities, I'm kind of cataloging what that means for them visually and how I can optimize that for them as well.
I love it. I love it. You're dropping gems here. I'm loving everything I'm hearing, and I want to dig a little deeper. It's one thing to be able to listen. What I'm hearing, right? You have to listen to your patients. You have to make that connection. It has to be meaningful. But I think we also need to touch on the piece of, eye-to-eye contact, body language. I think those things play a major role in that meaningful connection, because if a patient feels that you're not paying attention, you're looking at your computer, or you're looking at your cell phone, or just looking down at your shoes because they're untied, you're not going to be able to truly make that meaningful connection. So what tips do you have when it comes to just, I guess, body language more than anything in having those conversations with those patients?
Yeah, that's such a great point that you bring up, Darryl. Every little piece of the puzzle matters to patients. And as humans, we look to body language and nonverbal cues almost more than what we're hearing. And I think patients can often default to that. Some patients, I think a lot of our patients are a lot more stressed coming into our offices than maybe we imagine. We're very comfortable in our offices. Most of my patients, at least, are routine, but still a lot of patients might have unspoken anxieties around being at the eye doctor. And so making them comfortable with those body language, keeping open body language. I always come in, I'm not carrying my cell phone, I'm not carrying a pen, just so that they know I'm focused on them. And I always turn to face that patient with open body language. I don't cross my arms and make eye contact with them. Unfortunately, for my -7 myopes, they might not notice that quite but they make do. So just those little things, like you said, I think all those little things really add up to formulate that patient's experience and inform how they view us and their confidence in our recommendations. And so if I'm making that connection with the patient, ultimately I'm trying to gain their trust so that they will be confident in my recommendations. But like you said, those little things, seemingly little things, I think are big things. If I have a patient that seems a little more apprehensive, I'll probably, talk a little bit more quietly, try and kind of moderate my body language or my tone or volume, just so I'm not overwhelming somebody who might be anxious about being at the eye doctor's office. I'm constantly surprised that patients will tell me, not all the time, but, well, I'd rather be at the dentist than the eye doctor. Nothing against our dental friends, but they have needles and drills. So that just always reminds me that sometimes patients are coming in with some anxiety about seeing us, and I want to reassure them and make them feel comfortable.
I love that. And I think that's something that we all can do a better job of. Because I know I'm not going to lie. Sometimes I walk in their room and I'm like, hey, what's going on? Good to see you. Blah, 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 blah. A lot of energy. But as I become more seasoned, I have learned to be able to read the room. And I may go into the room that way, but when I see that patient's reaction, or if I see the way they're sitting or their legs across, whatever it may be, I know which direction I need to go with that conversation. And I think, again, that goes back to experience. But with this podcast, what I'm really trying to do is save our younger colleagues a lot of time by learning through our experiences. You don't always have to learn everything on your own. You can actually get mentors, listen to podcasts, webinars, have conversations with more seasoned ODs, and learn so much. But it's also bi-directional. The seasoned ODs can learn from the younger ODs, which can put them on the game and elevate that meaningful conversation and relationship as well. But I love everything that I'm hearing. We got to be able to read the room. We have to be able to listen, and we have to be able to understand who's sitting in front of us. Now let's pivot to number 2 for that personalized experience, if you don't mind, Britt.
Absolutely. So teamwork being number 2, I think having a very continuous patient experience from when they call to when they enter the optical to when they're in my office is really critical to form trust. I'm in a corporate sublease. My practice is next to a Walmart. So we're two businesses in one. My practice, I have my technicians, and then the optical is Walmart, and they have their opticians. And so we're under one roof. Our patients don't always recognize we're two separate businesses, and I want them to feel that it's continuous. And so that's really important to communicate with my opticians that work for Walmart and then with my technicians. So we really prioritized in our contact lens business daily disposables and introducing those to patients. My technicians will ask questions of my contact lens patients to start to get to know them. And then my opticians will reinforce when patients pick up their contacts. Something that's unique about the contacts. Oh, Dr. Gustafson really likes that brand of contacts. She wears that one herself. Things like that, just to kind of close the loop for patients. And one thing I have to give a ton of credit to my coworkers is that they're so great in recognizing patients and saying hello, using their name, and creating community. We have a unique position in being inside of a Walmart that patients grocery shop there. They're in there probably every week. So they stop by, they say hi. I see them out in the store when I'm buying my peanut M&Ms when I shouldn't be buying those. So just creating that community. I'm lucky that I have a lot of longtime technicians, and then I have some opticians that have been in the store for a long time and know patients. And I think that creates a family for them. They know we're a resource. They know where to find us. We're very convenient and accessible. So really creating that home for them.
I love that. So teamwork makes the dream work. Let's break this down in a little more detail. I think in order to make a team work, there needs to be some type of structure, right? So I'm curious to know, how did you get your team to buy into that teamwork theory or concept, I should say? Because you touched on something that I hope everyone heard, and that's that you have, people that have been with you for a long time. So there's something that you're doing that's causing them or making them want to stay a part of that team. So I'm curious to know, what is truly that secret sauce that's causing your team members to stay with you almost for, it seems like, a lifelong time, right? Because they're consistent, they're there, they know your patients, they know your community, and they're creating that personalized patient experience because they've worked with these patients over time. But what are you doing? What's the secret sauce to keep them held to the practice?
Yeah, it's kind of almost a chicken and the egg when you point it out like that, because that kind of family aspect that I was sharing, I think that's what keeps the staff there. And so I think that the previous doctor that I purchased the practice from, she set a great example in establishing that community, taking excellent care of patients, being really personalized about it, and that was important. So I think leading by example is really important there. Then I think once the staff, if they're newer, they see that it's really fun, that now we have these connections with patients. We get to, watch them grow up or watch them have great kids and grandkids. And that is a huge privilege. And to me, that's the joy of our days as optometrists. Don't get me wrong, I love a refraction, but but the person attached to the eyeballs is so much more interesting. And so I think creating that, it makes it a fun environment most days. And I think that's what keeps my technicians and opticians there, is that we have a good time. When we've created that environment, patients are like our family. And so it's kind of like, it's just a party with an eye exam. So that, I think, is what keeps people there.
Yeah, I love that. And when I sit down and I start to break this down a little bit more in my head, I always feel like if you can create a team, treat them right, your patients are going to see that, and your patients are going to be held to the practice. So it's like, keep your team members held to the practice, put them always number one, put them on the pedestal, and lead by example. And before you know it, the patients are going to witness all of this, and they're going to want to be a part of that family, and then they're going to be a part of that community long term as well. So I love how you broke that down from top to bottom, and I really love that you emphasize to lead by example. As optometrists, we are leaders. I always stress this in the exam lane. sided exam lane. And that's how you get that teamwork. That's how you get that community that you were just talking about. So I love that approach. Now let's go into this number 3 concept for personalizing that patient experience, Britt.
Now, number 3, I would say, is really taking ownership of our prescriptive authority. So
Ooh,
making a definitive recommendation, prescription to patients and simplifying their life. And I say this, you did a great job of mentioning, let's save our younger colleagues from making mistakes. I've made all of those mistakes. One of them that I made when I was a newer doctor was giving patients a laundry list of options. Oh, we could try this and we could try that. And while that seems kind of diplomatic, it's overwhelming to the patient, especially in this day and age. I think people have so much access to information. They're overwhelmed with options. And if they can come in and we can tell them, this is what's best for you. And I think the most important part is to say, and this is why I think this is best for you.
okay.
That creates trust and it simplifies their life. I know if I go into a doctor's office and they give me a list of things, my first question is going to be, well, what would you do? And so honestly, in my first few years of practice, a few of my patients, I almost hate to admit this, at one point they said, well, you're the doctor, tell me what you would do. And I thought, oh man, I really didn't do a great job there. But I'm glad they said that to me, because that was an all.
We've all had that moment. I've had that before as well. I'm not going to sit here and act like I'm just the best prescriber out there. I've actually had come to me and say that too. So we're all on the same boat on that one.
Right. When they say that, it's like, oh yeah, thank you. I will learn and move on from this. But yeah, I think I maybe heard it once, maybe I didn't quite get it. And the second time I thought, I've got to change. And so I really just took ownership of my authority as a doctor and the patient's trust in me, and would make a strong recommendation and let them know what I think is best. And I think that ties back to that 2-minute drill that you do with your patients and the questions we ask patients. Is when I make that recommendation, I always tell them why. So what about their lifestyle? What about their ocular health or visual needs makes me prescribe what I'm prescribing? Because I think that enhances their acceptance rate, and really more importantly, their understanding. I think I think all of us in optometry, we do this all the time. We think, oh, it's pretty straightforward, contact lenses, glasses. It is complicated to patients. I mean, when you think of all the misunderstandings just around astigmatism alone, patients, it's complicated.
Yeah.
So if we can simplify that, and again, just letting them know, I think X is best for you because of Y, or when you said this to me, that cued me to recommend this. I think number 1, it gets better buy-in on the recommendations. Number 2, they know we're listening, and it really personalizes the experience for them.
I love that. And when I hear this ownership of the refraction, I think 2 things. Number 1, I think confidence, right? I think we have to be confident in what we prescribe so the patients don't ask us saying, hey, you tell me, right? So I have that confidence to show that confidence when they're in the exam room as well, because at the end of the day, we are the experts. I think sometimes as optometrists, we forget that. Patients are coming to us because they know we have the right answers, the right solutions. So we got to be confident in what we are prescribing and what we're saying to our patients. The other piece is you got to be knowledgeable, right?
Right.
You got to be knowledgeable about product and services that you may be educating your patients about. And I feel like once you're able to do that, you're able to really lock down that ownership of prescribing, that ownership of that prescription, that ownership of that exam. So I love how you broke down these 3 ways to really personalize that patient journey with meaningful experience, with work, and with ownership of prescribing. I think these are 3 things that we all need to take to heart and make sure that we do day out, because this is how we create that X factor in the healthcare system, and to improve health outcomes, to improve adherence to various treatments, to improve diagnosis, and to improve just the entire patient journey as well. Now, Britt, while on this podcast, I want to connect with the younger OD population and the more seasoned OD population. So, if you give some advice for the younger ODs that are out there, what piece of advice would you give when it comes to this patient journey experience?
Gosh, kind of jokingly, I would say enjoy it while patients say, "Oh, you look too young to be a doctor." I heard that for years, and then it suddenly stopped, and it became, "You've been here forever." So,
Well, that's what that is.
that's right. So I remember I was always kind of, it felt like they were trying to diminish my authority a little bit because I looked young, and wow, what I wouldn't give to hear that again. But I think if I could go back and tell myself a couple of things, I think one, to echo what we just covered about taking authority with the prescriptions, and really recommending what you believe in. I was
I love
very
that.
hesitant to make recommendations for premium products when I started practicing, thinking patients might not adhere to that or be drawn to that because of the price. And I couldn't have been any more wrong in that patients want what's best for them. And sometimes, most of the time they can afford it, sometimes they can't, and we'll make a change at that point, but recommend what you think is best. It's never the wrong thing to do. So tell a patient what's best. And if it doesn't fit into their budget at that point, you can always pivot and amend it. You just never want to be the doctor that didn't recommend the best and then the patient goes somewhere else and gets that. I was fortunate to be in a lecture many years ago, and the presenter said, "What's good for the patient is good for the practice." And
Yes.
I take that to heart. Whatever, if I just do what's best for my patient, the business side of things will take care of itself and will grow. So that is another kind of guiding principle I have. So I would just tell newer practitioners, be confident, even if your patient's telling you you look like you're 12. and, and I think that confidence will show to the patient that even though you might look young, you are young, that's great. It doesn't mean that you're not incredibly capable.
I love it. I love it. Now let's go on the other side of the spectrum, right? Because we're helping out the young ODs, but again, more seasoned ODs are listening as well. And as I become older and wiser, sometimes I get stuck in my ways of doing certain things. And I feel like, there are some ODs that may be stuck in their way of doing things back in the day, which they no longer need to do. But I'm curious to know, what advice would you give them when it comes to personalizing this patient experience as well?
Yeah, I think you hit the nail on the head there, that we get into our ruts and our routines. And I think the one thing I hear sometimes from fellow seasoned ODs, which I like how you put that we're seasoned. I think
Hold on, before you go any further, let me tell you why I say seasoned. I had a patient come in and I told them that they were old, and I thought they were going to throw me out the window. So then I had a better way to communicate someone that was old. I didn't want to go and say you're old as hell. So then I just started saying you're more of a seasoned person, or my ladies, I say,
right.
you're getting younger today. So I kind of fluff it up a little bit to get that laugh, but to make that personal connection as well. Because I was scared. I thought they were going to actually harm me because I said that they were old. So if I can give any advice to any OD out there, never call a patient old, right?
Yes, even if they're 85. Yes, for our more seasoned colleagues, I would say sometimes what I hear from colleagues is, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. And when I hear that, I just think, oh man, because did you really ask enough questions to know if it's broken? I think patients, we know, at least our contact lens patients, vastly underreport any struggles they're having with contact lenses. I think a lot, and I think our spectacle patients too might be experiencing, they might be compromising on visual quality and not saying anything because they don't know it can be better. And that's incumbent upon us to tell them, I think we could improve on this if we change this, and let them make the decision if that's important to them or not. But it's so important that we make that prescription and recommendation. I think when I approach a patient, whether it's a glasses patient or glasses and contacts, really there's only two things I can do. I can meet their needs. So that patient comes in, they want a glasses prescription, I give it to them. So that's fine. Or I can exceed their expectations. That's a patient that comes in and tells me everything's just fine with their contacts. But I ask more probing questions and find out there's room for improvement and make that improvement without them having told me. That exceeds expectations. And that doesn't take any more chair time, but it's a completely different patient experience.
Oh, man. Hey, see, this is why I had you on the show. I'm taking notes. I'm just listening. I'm over here geeking out. This is my world. I love this. You just dropped some gems. You broke down how to personalize that patient experience, right? You broke down advice for the young ODs, the more seasoned ODs. And the way you put it, it was just so simple, so easy. And when you hear it, you're like, that's not that difficult. I can really make a change and an impact tomorrow. So I challenge all my ODs out there listening to this podcast to go out tomorrow and take these gems that you heard and implement it. And then the following day, another one until you get to that point where you exceed your patient's expectations in that exam lane. Now, Britt, I want to close out the show by asking you a question about legacy, because you have done so much in the eye care industry. You have impacted so many people, not just patients, but also other eye care professionals, me being one of them. I would love to know, what is it that you want to be known for when it's your turn to retire your phoropter? What legacy do you want to leave behind in eye care?
That's such a great question, Darryl. Wow. And sometimes I start to think, I probably have more years behind me than ahead of me. And that really flipped quickly. So
Yeah.
I would tell all the young ODs, you're still paying off student loans. I promise they'll get paid off. And one day you're going to be staring down retirement sooner than you thought you would be. Gosh, I think, just patient impact, that's so important to me that, when a patient refers their family members to me and says, I trust you with my children, that's what I'm going for. And so just patients to have said, hey, you made my life a little bit easier. You helped me when I was fearful about something with my eye health or my vision, or I was worried about my kids. So really just those small patient interactions, but aggregated together in a career. That's what I would want my legacy to be. That just making it somebody's life just a little bit better.
Hey, again, you've made my life better. You've made patients' life better. And everyone that's listening to this podcast, you have made their life better. And for those that are listening and they tap in with you and learn a little bit more about you, or maybe even some consulting or something to take their practice to the next level, what's the best way for them to connect with you?
Yeah, being more seasoned, I don't have TikTok or anything like this. So when you have a younger OD on the podcast and they talk about that, I will absolutely be listening to learn from that. But I'm on LinkedIn, so you can find me. If you can tackle spelling my incredibly long and cumbersome last name of Gustafson, please find me on LinkedIn and connect with me. I love connecting with our colleagues. That's been one of the great joys of being in this profession is, man, we are some cool nerds. I love ODs. It's such a fun group, and getting to meet you, Darryl, and working with you. And I've learned from you, and your energy is so great that after I get to meet people like you and work with colleagues, I always go back to my practice with a different energy. And I love that. Like that just is what keeps it fresh for all of us, I think.
I love it, Brett. Thank you so much for tapping in with me today. This has been fantastic. I learned a lot. I can't wait to get out into the practice tomorrow and make the magic happen. For all my colleagues out there, again, you got to remember, make it a meaningful experience, right? Teamwork makes the dream work, and have ownership of that prescription. You are the prescriber, so you're going to provide the right solutions for the patients. Don't just do something that's going to be what everyone else does. Make sure you do something that's exceptional. Take it to the next level. You have the power, you have the juice. We have an amazing profession, and it's up to us as eye care professionals, as optometrists, to continue to push it forward. Thanks again for tuning in, everyone. Stay healthy, stay positive, and stay blessed. And until next time, peace.
Hey family, if you enjoyed this full podcast, don't miss out on more engaging content. Check out the next episode right here. And for the latest updates, hit that subscribe button and ring the notification bell. Your support means the world to us. Catch us in the next episode. Peace.